Yeah, can we start the meeting? Hello, Habib?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 1 minute, sir. You can go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of NAC and on my personal behalf, I welcome each and every one of you for the Series 8, Upanyasya Malika 8. I welcome Professor S.C. Sharma, the Honorable Director of NAC, for initiating the series, very meticulously explaining the assessment and accreditation process, criteria, key indicators, and what is the philosophy behind each and every criteria, key indicator, and metric. Why NAC is asking these type of questions, quantitative and qualitative, how it reflects quality. In this series, the need and the importance of the Memorandum of Understandings, MOUs, collaborations, linkages and collaborations, formal MOUs, functional MOUs in higher education, and with related to the student support and progression with all the universities and colleges in India. So with this introduction, we have a small brief and introduction by our Director NAC, Professor S.C. Sharma ji, on the need for MOUs and collaboration. He will share his views, followed by our expert, Professor Dr. S. Srikanta Swami, our academic expert, who's at the research and analysis wing of NAC, an education expert who's continuously helping NAC in different various facets of its criteria, followed by interactions. Participants, our ICT experts, Professor Ramya Kumar Rath and Dr. Sam Vale will help us. Please raise your logical hands, live audio and video, depending on your bandwidth, in Q&A as well as in chat. In addition to that, I welcome all the people who are watching live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, including our own platforms, people across the globe, including people in India. I welcome once again over to the Director NAC. May I kindly request the Director NAC, Professor S.C. Sharma ji, to brief us on the need for MOUs and the collaboration in higher education. Professor Sharma ji, please.
Welcome to this Upanyasa Malika. Again, after my introductory speech, Professor Srikant Swami, an eminent educationalist, will be talking about certain aspects of higher education, its collaboration and MOU. And what is the need for Memorandum of Understanding and collaboration in higher education? NAC's A&A process is very comprehensive and based on good international practices. It has adopted good practices to the manuals and made them more robust and institutions friendly. At every stage of assessment, the manuals ask for evidences as per data templates, especially for quantitative metrics. We have the data validation and verification. There it is a third party evaluation where all the important documents are produced. It is like a court. You produce all the documents as an evidence. And in today's lecture series, I will be throwing more light on the significance of Memorandum of Understanding and collaboration in higher education. And Memorandum of Understanding is a multilateral agreement among multiple parties intended to express a common vision and line of action. MOUs are not legally binding, but they carry a degree of seriousness and mutual respect stronger than a gentleman's agreement. Often MOUs are the first step towards a legal contract. In US law, a Memorandum of Understanding is synonymous with a letter of intent which is a non-binding written agreement that implies a binding contract is to follow. MOUs are popular in multinational international relations because unlike treaties, they take a short time to ratify and can be kept confidential. MOUs may be also used to modify existing legal treaties. The MOU can be seen as a starting point for negotiations as it defines the scope and purpose of the task. Well, there are a lot of things can be written in MOU and execution can take place. How a memorandum of understanding works in enhancing quality in higher education. MOU is an expression of agreement to produce exchange of research, exchange of grants, exchange of papers, a lot of things, exchange of students. These things can happen. That key takeaway is MOU can communicate the mutually accepted expectations of all the parties involved in a negotiation, and while not legal binding, MOU signals that a binding contract is imminent. And under US law, MOU is the same as the letter of intent. In fact, arguably a memorandum of understanding, a memorandum of agreement, a letter of intent are virtually indistinguishable, and MOUs communicate the mutually accepted expectation of the people, organizations or governments involved. And contents of MOU. MOU clearly outlines specific points of understanding, and while not a legally enforceable document, MOU is a significant step because of the time, effort involved in negotiating and drafting an effective document. While the process often begins with each party effectively drafting its own best case MOU, it considers its ideal or preferred outcome, what it believes, and it has to offer to the other party. Advantage and disadvantages of MOU. Well, there is no disadvantage as such, but when it breaks, what happens when it is halfway through, that can be debated. A memorandum of understanding allows all parties to clearly state all their objectives and goals. This makes for less uncertainty and prevents future unexpected disputes to occur. So, and the biggest drawback of an MOU, however, depending on your viewpoint, that is, it is not legally binding. So this is one thing. While in some cases this may be benefit, since neither party is required to do what they say in the MOU, they can simply walk away or change their expectations, and this is a dangerous thing. What should a well executed MOU include? It should include the details, the information, what has to be clearly conveyed, and it should provide the guidelines defining the use and the language outline if and how the partnership should be announced, the length of the time and point of contract, signatures from leadership, who will be signing what document, and collaboration. This is a very important thing in the memorandum of understanding. It is an important way for higher education institutions to innovate and adopt in a rapid adapt in a time of rapid and continuous change. So these collaborations will be more realistic. The perspective use can also be changed, also be envisaged in improving the quality of higher education. It has professional and social relevance. So, and then what are the key takeaways? The key takeaways is collaboration with higher education institution. Virtual environments can be extended to reach of the research collaboration. Cloud computing offers opportunities to rethink collaboration within higher education, and then ICT community in higher education shares its benefit with spirit of collaboration. This has been the case since the earlier days of computing, and earlier in case of information services such as libraries, internet and the World Wide Web have greatly enhanced the beneficial of interchange. Many opportunities lie ahead for more open, extensive, collaboration and accompanying benefits for ICT, including through use of virtual research environments and cloud computing services. So this is just a cursory glance or look at the MOUs and collaboration of higher education institution. Well, Dr. Shrikant Swami will talk more about this. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Sharmaji. Thank you very much, Professor Sharmaji, for having given a brief introduction about the MOU, its importance, as well as the importance of collaboration. Respected Vice Chancellors from different higher education institutions, professors, and all academic administrators who have participated in this program, a warm welcome once again from my side. And this is the 8th in the lecture series. And you are familiar today, our focus is on MOU, collaborations, and student support progression. These are three areas which I am going to focus more on, these three areas. And the main objective is to make you to understand the importance of MOU, little more reinforcement in continuation of whatever Professor Dr. S. Sharmaji has started. And similarly with respect to collaboration. And lastly, I am going to highlight, keeping our NAAC University Manual, what are the metrics or which are the different metrics which highlights upon the different aspects of MOU, collaboration and student progression. I think this is the focus for today's discussion and today's participation. I just ask you to have a mindset about these three broader areas only. And let me start by referring to one or two small quotations given by some experts. The first one is, what is collaboration? Amit Ray, he says, collaboration is the essence of life. The wind, bees, and flowers work together to spread the pollen. Therefore, the collaboration is already there in the nature. Another expert by name Vishwas Chauhan, he says, I always believed in the power of collaboration. Early on in my professional career, I realized that you cannot develop all the competencies you need part enough on your own. Furthermore, if you do not collaborate, your ideas will be limited to your own abilities. As a result, you will not be able to serve your clientele, and this cannot achieve the anticipated impact. Therefore, there is a need to go for collaboration. Now, another important expert, he also says the collaboration is very essential because through collaboration, we are not only going to have innovative ideas, but we are going to have organizational innovativeness, which is very, very important. Therefore, through collaboration, we can come out with organizational innovativeness, which really adds for the quality of higher education institution. I think with this background, I have prepared few slides by referring to the information available free, and I am going to just share them. To start with, let me highlight on the need and importance of MOU. Already, I think our director has given, but I will highlight and reinforce little more on these important 6 aspects. Number one, the demand and expectations of stakeholders of higher education is increasing day by day. Earlier, stakeholders' expectation was limited. Now, the expectations of stakeholders are increasing day by day. A parent says, I want my son to have not only the knowledge but competencies. Parent says, I want my son to be comfortable with the different tools which are used in the area of a network, in the area of computer application. Then similarly, parent says, I want my son to be equipped with all the necessary skills which will make him to get a job very easily. Parents also will say, the higher education institution should equip and empower my son in such a way that if he gets an opportunity to go abroad, he should be able to go and get a job. He should be able to go and continue his higher education. In that way, the demand and expectations of stakeholders of higher education is increasing day by day. This is one important need. The second one is HEIs have to play multiple roles. Earlier, if I'm a physics professor, I'm supposed to teach about physics and come back. But now I have to do multiple roles. Like I have to explain my students how to carry on the laboratory practical activities, how to organize the practical work, then how a knowledge of virtual laboratory will make me to have a better insight into the practical aspect. Therefore, many skills like an organizational skill, teaching inside the class, equipping the students, giving proper guidelines, and apart from that, every teacher, irrespective of the subject, you want the teacher to develop certain skills among the students, certain competences among the students. Therefore, in higher education, the multiple roles are day by day increasing. Therefore, there is a need for us to go for, to supplement or complement the same thing, there is a need to go for collaborations or MOU. Other one, accreditation agencies look education from the global perspective. Therefore, an accrediting agency like NAAC, when they visit, when the peer team visit the institution, they don't expect how exactly the institution is running to cater to the needs of Indian students. No. Apart from that, they say, how are you equipped in case foreign students are coming to your institution? How are you going to teach them? How are you going to convince them that your standard is on par with other standard, whatever the highly progressed and vibrant universities are doing across the country, outside the country? Therefore, this is very much essential. They need to attract the international students. Therefore, in what way the higher education institutions are different compared to other foreign universities? As I discussed earlier, we have got research universities on one hand, academic universities on the other hand. Therefore, if you wanted to become a typical academic university or a typical research university, you have to perform multiple roles for which you yourself may not be able to do it. Therefore, there is a need to depend upon the other source. They need to compete the job market. Ultimately, the students, they want to settle in life, therefore they want the job. After graduating from a particular university or a college, they wanted to go in search of a job and they want to get a better job. So somewhere or the other, the universities are expected to fulfill this task. Though some argument is going on with respect to this area, namely, whether universities and colleges should give primary importance in making the students to get a job, or should give primary importance in providing the updated knowledge, specialized knowledge, knowledge pertaining to multiple disciplines, then equipping them with the competencies, and ultimately you leave them to the open place where they can encash all these things to get a job. Therefore, some kind of argument is going on. But with all these things, higher education institutions cannot escape that they have to provide the students all the necessary skills, knowledge necessary to get a job. That's why the job market is equally important. And in order to equip them for the job market, higher education institutions should have the need to have collaborations with other organizations who are very good in that particular area. The last one here I mentioned, need to prepare the students as world-class citizens. Now I think the purpose of education is to create the global peace. The purpose is to create world-class citizens. And the purpose is to create the students who can serve not only their country, not only their native country, but they have to cater to the needs of the other countries also. In that way, day by day, our responsibilities as higher education institutions involved in the process of giving education is increasing. Therefore, there is a felt need on our part to make sure that we should, whatever in the limitations we are working, but keeping the objectives in mind, aims in mind, if the higher education institution is not able to fulfill all those things on its own. Therefore, it has to depend upon the other sources, outside sources, by having MOU as well as the collaborations. I think this is the beautiful point, some of the points that I've discussed, which highlights on the need for going for the collaborations and also about the MOU. As already been highlighted, MOU is called Memorandum of Understanding. It is defined as an agreement between the parties, and it can be bilateral or sometimes multilateral. Like in institution X can have MOU with institution Y, or institution X can have MOU with Y and Z. Like that, the multiple bilateral or multiple, we can go for MOU. The MOU serves as an expression of aligned will between the parties in question and depicts the intent of common line of action. MOU, although a formal document, as highlighted by our director, Professor S. Sharma ji, it is not legally binding. This is very, very, very important. If you are having a 2 MOU, if Mr. X, as one of the signatories in the MOU, if he is not happy about the way in which he is expected to cooperate, he cannot legally question. He can just go for a small appeal, write a letter to him, request him to fulfill all those things, but legally it is not there, because it has got its own consequences if we keep the legal point in mind. But however, legal implications may also be there when a country wanted to have an MOU with some other country on some important aspects, because without the fulfillment, keeping the time duration in mind, it may lead to greater loss on the part of a particular country. Therefore, in such situation, they also may go for legal opinion. But most of the cases, it is not legally binding. It merely shows the willingness of each concerned party to take action to move the contract forward. Now, the process of getting a finalized MOU is initiated by the involved parties preparing them, and they have to follow by referring to some of the templates which are already available there in the open source. You can download and you can keep on entering, and you can modify certain things here and there, keeping your interest and the interest of the other party. The key outcomes they are not willing to compromise on, and what the respective party believes the other stakeholders can expect and benefit from the MOU. It serves as the party's initial position before the negotiation begin. Before the negotiation, you should have a clear-cut idea why you wanted to go for MOU. Because NAC is insisting, you should not go merely. You have to understand why the NAC is insisting, or why accrediting agencies are insisting. I think the institution should realize it, understand it, convinced about that particular aspect. After having convinced only, they have to go for MOU. I think I highlight upon this point. Then it can be between private sector and also about the public sector. You can have our private sector or private enterprises also can go for MOU. In business and private enterprise dealings, MOU normally serve as a non-binding agreement that encompasses the responsibilities and requirements for each party and the terms and details pertain to the agreement. So both of them should sit together. Before that, terms and conditions, they should have a clear understanding. What should be the duration? What are the objectives with which you are going to have? If I am representing one, let us say X institution or organization, what is that I am expecting from Y? If you are representing the Y organization, what is that you are expecting from X? I think that is very, very important. Clearly, you should have an understanding. Then you also should have a practical understanding of these aspects and expectations. Practically, is it possible for the other party to fulfill? If practicality is not there, then it becomes theory. We have come across some of the MOUs, they were there in the papers. In action, it is not there. Though they have mentioned they had 6 objectives of this MOU, 5 objectives to sign this MOU, but not even one they have realized because of the practical difficulties which they have not visualized it. Then it is done without establishing a formal contract or legally fine. Therefore, you have to just prepare that, have a true understanding, then only you have to proceed for signing the MOU. Government and public affairs also can have. MOUs can be used within government departments, for example. In the United Kingdom, the documents serve as the agreement between parts of the Crown. Public international law, for example, on the international level, MOUs fall under the treaties category and they must be registered. Therefore, somewhere they say if you wanted to go for MOU, depending upon whether it's a governmental organization or not, depending upon international organization or not, certain conditions are there. I think one has to refer to those conditions, then only they have to proceed. Like as I mentioned, United Nations Treaty Collection. Therefore, one has to have a knowledge about how it is functioning, and based on that, what are the conditions that they have given, guidelines that they have given if somebody wanted to go for international MOU. Like that, at the international level also, there are certain organizations have been given a lot of responsibility. They have given guidelines, and one has to go to the guidelines and then can proceed with the MOU. In order to determine whether or not the agreement is legally binding, the intent of the parties and the positions of the signatories must be presented. The word used in the agreement also plays a role in determining the legal nature of the document. So whatever the wordings we are using, terminology we are using, sometimes may lead to some legal implications. Therefore, one has to check every word, whatever the word that is going to be used, that has been used, that should be considered. Otherwise, some of those wordings also may lead to little bit of legal implications. Now, here one more important point that I would like to, there are many experts who can help you also, but depending upon the intensity with which you are going for the MOU. If it is on a lower level, if you wanted to have an MOU immediately, I think you can manage by referring to the outside source information template, fill up the whole thing and get a signature and proceed with mutual trust. But if you wanted to go to a higher level, consultants are there. Taking their help, I think you can proceed. There are many simple guidance that they are given to prepare. One is called the review MOU, making sure the correct template is being used. MOUs on different aspects are there. Related to education, we have got MOU. Related to trade, we have got MOU. Commerce, we have got MOU. Related to IT industry, we have got MOU. Therefore, you should select the correct template which is suitable to you. Replace all the gray shade. They have given some gray shaded area where it is easy because it is a template. You can remove it and you can add your own information there. Then, if you represent an NGO, please remember to enter a short description of your organization on page 2 of the MOU. They have given, if you are an and ultimately some basic rules are also there. Who has to sign the copy? Very important. Both the parties should keep the original documents. Signing is important. Authorized signature is very important. Then in case you wanted to renew that MOU, how one has to go for renewal of that MOU. And at the same time, how to make this MOU more functional. I think this is what NAC also insists. When the PRT members go for visit, they ask you, do you have the functional MOU? MOU can be for 3 years. MOU can be for 2 years, 5 years, like that. In some cases, automatically, they put one or two small statements there stating that after 2 years, automatically it will be renewed, provided no objection is there from both the parties. Both the parties, if they do not have any objection, therefore 2 years over, automatically the next term of 2 years starts. Another next term of 2 years starts. But in some places they say, no, sir, we go for that MOU. We watch for 2 years how it will work. If it works very well, we continue. Or else we are not going to continue. We discontinue with that process. In that way, option is also there. Choice is also there. Please note that any changes to the standard MOU template will require the clearance from the. That's why always better to refer to the standard MOU because certain steps are very clear in the standard MOU. For example, to mention some of the steps like number 1 is about the description of the organization which you have to do it, part A and part B they expect. Anybody reads into that MOU, partner X, for example, who is that partner, his details. Partner Y, who is that partner Y and its details. Then the objectives and scope of this MOU, objective 1, objective 2, 3, 4, we have to mention. without objectives, a MOU may not become a very comprehensive one. Scope also you have to define. What is the scope of this MOU? Because scope gives us a specific way of functioning. Then apart from that, you also can just mention the definitions and interpretations, if at all, if it is anything is there in terms of the terminology, whatever that you have used in the agreement, in the MOU. Then apart from that, they also will ask you about the principal contact details, the address, the phone number, the email, for correspondence, other things you have to enter because it is mandatory. Then the principal contact details, resources and facilities available, you can mention there. Financial arrangements if you wanted to mention, because in some MOU we say without providing the financial assistance, we are going to have MOU with you. In some places we say the financial assistance is there, but it is limited to this amount only. They will mention that also. Therefore, somewhere in some places without financial assistance they can have MOU. In some places with financial assistance. That part also is there, you can mention it. Then the communication and exchange of information, how one has to communicate, who is the main correspondent for all these things. In case you have got intellectual property, because of your MOU, in some, let us say, industrial setup, both of you can jointly come out with a different product. But if you get a different product altogether, what about the intellectual property, intellectual rights? Whether partner X should get it or partner Y should get it, you have to mention it. Because you are starting, MOU is for 5 years. At the end of the 5 years, you may come out with some product which has got greater value in the market. Therefore, the fight may start because of a simple thing. Make that point also very clear about this intellectual property. Or sometimes if you wanted to say something about the patent aspect also, you can discuss. Marketing and publicity, if you wanted to make, you can make that idea clear. This is what we are going to market about the product. This is what we are going to advertise there. Because sometimes when some people are using the advertisement, in the name of MOU, they can use both the logos. Otherwise, sometimes there will be an objection. All these things you can make it very clear in your own MOU. Then apart from that, the settlement of the disputes, in case some disputes may arise. 5 years it is there, after 2 years some dispute comes. How to settle that dispute? As I said, legal aspect is not there, legal binding is not there, we mentioned. But however, some kind of the settlement issue comes there, how to solve, how to resolve, that aspect is there. In some places they will say, extreme cases, any kind of product that they are going to get it, they say both of them have got freedom to use this product and give it or donate it to somebody. That information can also be mentioned there. Then review and evaluation. Then once in 6 months that they can review, once in 3 months that they can review. I have come across some MOUs which have not been renewed at all. They have signed, then kept. After 3 years they remembered, oh, we had an MOU. What happened to the MOU? I think sometimes when you look back, nothing is there, because proper review is very important. Once in 3 months, once in 5 months. In most of the standard template, these aspects are there. In addition to it, then you also can say disclaimer. The document is a memorandum of understanding and is not intended to create binding or legal obligations on either of the party. Therefore, the disclaimer aspect probably you have to mention there. And the effective dates and signatures, who are the people who are supposed to sign it. And like that, the standard template, if you can take it, it gives all these details. But standard MOU pertain to which department, which area? As I said, education, there are specific MOU templates. Then for industry specific, you have to select the right one and proceed. Now, the next one is, the next point is regarding the collaboration. Now, usually we ask the questions, do you have the collaborations or linkages with the other organizations, we ask. So what is this collaboration? Collaboration is a powerful vehicle to promote learning and professional development and in an effective way to maximize the impact of institutional investments in faculty. So usually in higher education institutions, since we are concerned with HEIs, our collaborations is to improve upon our teaching learning process maybe, improve upon our curricular designing, improve upon our evaluation procedures, improve upon our examination system, improve upon our practical way of conducting the examinations. Like that, you can limit yourselves to some of the areas wherein there is a provision for you to go for collaborations. And MOU is actually a written document. We keep it as a reference point and you proceed. Whereas in collaboration, we keep the objective, we keep the purpose, accordingly we go and maybe writing a letter, a formal letter, writing a formal letter, getting a formal reply from the other party. Therefore, the collaboration is not so very, very rigid like. Whereas in MOU, a little more of rigidity we insist upon, collaborations a little more free, and both the parties probably they can take a decision and some kind of record to say that you have gone collaborations on some aspects. Collaborative faculty development programs can be organized, help to maintain a dynamic institutional climate that sustains good faculty and ultimately promotes a healthy learning environment for students. So collaborations can be on faculty development programs. FPI we call. Regarding that, you can have a faculty development program. Then collaboration also requires individuals and institutions to step out of the comfort zones where they usually operate quite autonomously. To achieve the benefit that collaboration promises, the parties involved must learn how to go about, especially the productively in order to get the benefit for both the parties. Therefore, collaboration with respect to, let us say, technology related issues, we can have collaborations. Students related issues, we can have collaborations. I think one or two examples I'll come a little bit later. There are many challenges also when somebody wanted to go for collaboration. Whenever people or organization come together, conflict is bound to surface because of collaborations. Initially, they say we go for collaboration. Then when they start having collaboration with the other organizations for some developmental activities, finance may come. No, we never thought that the amount is going to be so high. We cannot continue with the collaboration, that they may say. Initially, you thought that you are going to send only a batch of few students, but so many students are coming. We are not afford to provide facilities to all of them. Like that, we have come across people who had a lot of collaborative activities have expressed this. The most common challenges of collaborating revolve around cultural differences sometimes, finding common interest and goals, geographical constraints and power differences present in the group. I think depending upon the nature, you come across these cultural differences. If you wanted to have international collaborations, we say. But once when you go, food habits aspect may be there, the timings aspect may be there, language issue may be there in some other places. Like that, sometimes when you go for collaborations, certain things you must not have imagined, but ultimately that may result in ending up with some kind of problems and issues. Cultural differences are present across individual discipline and institutional boundaries. And the more that culture differ, the more likely that, like you wanted to have an organization, collaboration, let us say, with an institute of national importance. You are basically an autonomous college. You wanted to have, but cultural differences are there. As I mentioned, organizational culture, the difference is there. Organizational climate-wise, the difference is there. The way in which they operate, the way in which they had some kind of work culture, that may come in the way. Therefore, whenever you wanted to have a collaboration, see the compatibility and then proceed with the collaboration. See how best you can have collaborations with a similar organization is equally important. Then time is a valuable resource that is often required to develop collaborative proposals, maintain communication, resolve conflicts and complete shared projects and tasks. Sometimes they say we had a collaboration to have 5 major research projects, but ultimately we ended up with completing only one project or 50% of one single project. It may happen. Why it happened? Because proper planning is not there. You must not have visualized the impact of this collaboration. Like that, there are many issues are there. So my suggestion would be, when you wanted to have collaborations for your organization, better you interact with the people, already those you have signed for collaborations, interact with them, get some kind of suggestions from them, counseling from them, so that you can work better in that particular direction. Otherwise, for the sake of collaboration, for the sake of establishing and providing the linkage, it may not help. Projects may be carried out at different locations, and finding the time to communicate and keep a long distance collaborative movement forward can be a burden. Initially, you said, ultimately, yes, sir, as per our collaboration, you can send your students, but we have got one organization in Delhi, one more in Bangalore, and collaboration is there, therefore kindly send your students to Delhi. But I thought the collaboration with the organization that is there in Bangalore, so that our students can go very frequently. But collaboration in Delhi, collaboration is maybe in some other part far away from your main organization, may be very difficult. Therefore, I think those things are there, but I think not a difficult thing. You can visualize, you can work out, and you can proceed. Finally, the balance of power between the partners is also a factor that can influence any working relationship. If one party has more power to make decisions or is superior to another member in some relevant capacity, there are possible negative ramifications for the entire relationship. Many collaborations did not happen. Like in teacher education, atmosphere will be there and they can come with a lot of benefits. Then, as I mentioned here, one point, the balance of power between the partners is equally important. Now, in collaborations, who has been involved in the process of carrying on the collaborations. Supposing an assistant professor is involved in the collaboration is one situation, a senior professor is involved in the other situation. Therefore, there is a lot of difference. Sometimes it affects now. So better you keep that. That's why in MOU we make all these ideas very clear. We make it very clear. From our side, one senior professor. From your side, one senior professor. They are going to sign. They are in charge. They are carrying on the whole program or process. But in some places, if there is a difference now, it may spoil the relationship. It may spoil the healthy atmosphere between, leads to some kind of problem. Now, there are certain key elements common to successful collaborations. People will say, we are having collaborations with 5 organizations. Or an engineering college may say, we have got collaborations with the 5 technical industries. We have got collaborations with corporate sectors. Most of them they say. Because why they say? By saying so, by doing so, they get better credentials from the accrediting agencies. Therefore, most of them may go. But some of them are really doing well. All those who have got A++ grade or A+ grade or even B++ also, some of them, they are doing very well. Sincerely, to the best of their ability and knowledge that they are doing. They are able to convince. But some factor that they have to keep in mind if they wanted to go for this. Suresh Babu, my voice is okay? Thank you. Then, what are the factors that one has to keep in mind? One is about the mutual trust is equally important. Mutual trust. No, because of my collaboration, the other organization is going to get name and fame. Therefore, you started the collaboration, you are going to stop because you get some kind of hint or clue that because of your collaboration, other organization is getting the name and fame. Therefore, better you close that. I have come across that some people fighting like that. That's why I said mutual trust is important. Both the organizations should grow. There can be a small difference, may not be a significant difference in terms of name and fame, does not matter. Other organizations may get because of your intervention in collaboration, or you may get a little more. Tolerate it, mutual trust. A good communication is important. Most of the time they say communication gap, communication gap. I think with good communication, you can make things to work better. A sense of shared interest and goals. Well-defined and clear expectations. This is also equally important. Well-defined and clear expectations. We should be very clear. With this collaboration, I am sure, my institution, we are going to have more number of students participating in the research program. I am very clear about it. My expectations is Because of this collaboration, more number of students will go for PhDs. More number of students will apply for minor research project. More number of students will apply for more number of major research projects. I think therefore well defined and clear expectations are equally important. And roles which are mutual and practical. We say roles. How we perform our roles, accordingly the effectiveness will be there. Roles which are mutual and practical. I think both the ways we have to do it, especially for research collaborations. I am working in a private university. Let us say I wanted to have collaborations with the Indians of science or Indians of technology. I wanted to have collaborations, but I have to think twice whether they are ready for the collaborations or not, number one. And number two, if we are going to collaborate, can I gear up myself to their standard and equip my students? In collaborative projects, some of your students can go get the benefit of the laboratories which are there and do part of their PhD program that they can do, and they can come back. Therefore, this thing may happen provided the roles which are mutually accepted and the roles are practical in nature. Then trust, as I mentioned, trust is an unspoken but essential component for successful collaboration. Therefore, we have to believe, we have to trust and proceed. Trust between partners must exist in order for the collaboration to flourish. Fortunately, a high level of pre-existing trust often exists between partners who have previously worked together and many collaborations entering from prior collaborations. That's why initially you may have some difficulties. But gradually it is possible that you can improve your collaborations. Experience makes a man to go move towards perfection or excellence. Therefore, initially you may come across some difficulties. You need not worry, but you march on, you move on so that you can achieve the expected outcomes. Moreover, the quality and frequency of communication is equally important. Communication, as I mentioned, one is the mutual trust. Second one is about communication. How well you communicate. We have got different modes of communication. Thanks to our technology experts, we are living in a technology-driven society. I can communicate through message. I can communicate through WhatsApp. I can communicate through my Facebook. I think different social media also you can make use of it and you can communicate. So communication plays an important role. So one has to plan and prepare regarding that. Then a sense of shared or common circumstances, interests, and goals is crucial for maintaining collaborations. Shared or common circumstances, interest, and goals. It is something like give and take. Or we also use the word win-win situation, win-win. You cannot say with this kind of collaboration, I am going to get 90% benefit, whereas the other organization is going to get only 10%. That may not remain for a longer period. Win-win. As that's why I said a sense of shared and common circumstances, interest, and goals. Then, how can we achieve about all these things? Therefore, I think mutual trust is important, communication is important, common goals, common expertise, all these things are fine. But how do we achieve this? Once again, as I mentioned earlier, your vision should be very clear. You should have a shared vision. Then a clearly defined goals. What are your objectives of? Always in our education, we say, anything you start, we ask you, what is the purpose of this? Or we ask you, what are your objectives of doing this collaboration? Objective number 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it something related to the knowledge? Something related to the skill development? Something related to the practical aspect? Something related to IT collaboration or ICT collaboration? Make your objects very, very clear. Then an agreed upon mission and strategies. So commonly you can just say, how do you take it as a mission from both the sides? What type of strategy that both of you are intending to carry on in order to make your collaborations more functional? All parties engaged in the decision-making process. Now, sometimes, if the collaboration is being done by the director of one organization and the principal of another organization, better you make all your faculty members to know about this. Collaboration is not between directors and directors. Collaboration is not between a principal and a principal or a vice chancellor and a vice chancellor. Vice chancellor represents, director represents, principal represents the organization. Therefore, make sure that everyone in the organization should have a sound knowledge about this collaboration. So also with the MOU, everybody should know. It is not we have typed something and we have kept it in our shelves and we have locked the whole thing. No, I think it should be available. If possible, in our own portal, we can put it. In our own website, we can put it. Make that document more visible to everybody. Nothing wrong in it. We need not hide. Then the next one, the ability to compromise is also equally important. Sometimes it happens, in the collaboration, one organization may work slightly more. It may spend slightly more. It has provided more facilities compared to the other organizations. Fine. With open heart, one who has given that facility should feel happy. Similarly, one who has received the hospitalities and received the support also should feel happy and thank them profoundly. Nothing wrong. After having received these kinds of benefits from the other organization, you should have that kind of magnanimity to express very openly. Thank you, sir. Because of your collaboration, we could do so much in our teaching learning. We could do so much in our research area. We could do so much in our administration and management. Accept openly. Clear rules and expectations reduce the chances for conflict and help to move joint projects ahead. Finally, having defined rules, procedures, and expectations of members in the relationship help to define formally the boundaries of what each partner is or is not supposed to do. I think you can come to that kind of understanding if the rules are defined properly, procedures are very clear, mission is very clear. These also help clarify what each partner is expected to contribute to the relationship. I think thanks to many such organizations and great visionaries who thought of this idea initially, even our NAC advisors, earlier advisors, present advisors, and all the officers who have got a clear-cut idea, and they thought that I think every higher education institution should undergo MOU, should have some MOUs, and also should have collaborations with the organizations. That is how I think we could see some kind of progress, because always compared to one mind, they say two minds are better compared to a single mind, because greater innovations can be produced because of that. Collaborative faculty development strategies at USA, I would like to give illustration, one or two small illustrations that will make you to understand how, in the name of collaboration, people can do. I think this, I'm very happy I got it from an open source. I sincerely thank all those who have given this information very openly to the open source so that people can make use of it. Number one, in your collaborations, you can go for co-mentoring process. So co-mentoring is one area. Co-mentoring provides support for junior and the seasoned faculty members to work together on teaching, research, or service projects of mutual interest. So co-monitoring. In our education system, somewhere it is lacking. But I have observed in 2 or 3 situations where a beautiful amalgamation is there, the way in which the juniors moves with the higher authorities. But in some organizations, even juniors, higher authorities, we can speak, but we cannot speak to the junior officers. That also have come across the situation. But if you go to the law field, always you come across junior advocates going to the senior advocates, and they learn a lot of things from the seniors, so that they are going to be equipped to do certain things on their own. Supreme Court judges are there. Therefore, many juniors will go, interact with them, learn from them. Nothing wrong. That is how the experience should percolate from higher to the lower level, from experienced people to the non-experienced people. Similarly, in the field of medicine, we have come across junior doctors moving always with the senior doctors, especially with the surgeons. The junior doctors are not exposed to, therefore they go, they assist the senior doctors, they learn from them. Whereas this kind of practice is nowadays it is reduced. Therefore, they say co-mentoring is the best technique wherein the senior professors, they can interact with the juniors, they can train the juniors, the mentoring process can happen very well, so that whatever the gap that exists between senior and junior, it will go away. Therefore, this is a must. Therefore, one has to keep this particular point in mind, that opportunities are there wherein you can go for simple co-mentoring is one particular area in which you can have collaborations. These alliances were based on the belief that well-designed mentoring partnership can provide beneficial learning opportunities to both parties, not just the junior members only. I think this is a good example I've given. Second one, another example I'm just sharing, wherein in collaboration, how people are doing well. Scholarly consultation grants. I think this is very interesting. These grants provided modest funds to enable professors to travel to consult with a colleague elsewhere who share a common research interest to bring that colleague to the grant recipient's home campus. This is one example. Like, let us say I'm a professor working in Bangalore. I have worked in one particular area. Therefore, another senior professor is there working in Bombay. Therefore, I am a very junior man here working in that field. Just now I started, maybe in the area of computer clouding, some areas. But just now, maybe semiconductors, conductors, superconductors, maybe that particular area. I have just started, but there are experts who are there. I cannot meet them. Over the phone, they say I am busy. Or maybe through your WhatsApp also, some of the seniors may not be able to cooperate so well. The best way is to go take an appointment and stay there in a place which is close to them, and you can interact with them. For that, you can have a grant. Therefore, there are very well organized structure wherein they have given specific grants for the juniors to go and contact the seniors and get their help. They can travel. They can claim TA and DA from this grant. See what a beautiful opportunity. Then Wesleyan University's mini grant program for scholarly consultation is one example of this technique. A beautiful thing. Some of you also can plan now. You can keep some fund. Money is not an issue for many organizations, but the scarcity of money is not there, but the scarcity of idea is there, and innovative idea may be there. Scarcity of innovative idea. Here is a good example. In a time when collaborative work is increasingly important within and between many fields, small travel grants can help professors to keep up with rapid advances in knowledge, and in some cases even laboratories. I visited North Texas. There is one university, Austin. I visited. I felt so happy to see such a beautiful laboratory. Seeing itself creates a beautiful impact on an individual. Looking at those beautiful equipments, by looking at it, you feel you will be thrilled. You will be really thrilled. A vibration starts in your body. Oh, such a gadget is available. They say, what is the cost? They say 1 crore, 1.5 crores. Like that, visiting some laboratory and coming back itself motivates an individual. Meeting senior professors and then getting some kind of tips from them, how to start a laboratory, how to continue, so many things. Therefore, somewhere or the other, the message here is the gap between the seniors and juniors, professors especially, can be minimized now. And sometimes, if need be, this kind of facilities can be provided so that technically they can move, establish a good rapport and relationship and get the benefit. And hence why we call it as a professional partnership program. The next one is support for collaborative research. Collaborative research. Like what are the facilities for the research? When we think of research, social science, we want very good journals, research journals. In some colleges, they may not be having. Staff members are interested to do some research in that particular area. Facilities are not there, what that they have to do. Students are interested, facilities are not there, what they have to do. One may request the management, if it is a private one, or request the higher authorities to provide. But there are organizations, institutions of national importance, they have got well-established library. And a lot of online resources are also available, plenty of online resources. Therefore, there is a method to collaborate with them and again. Therefore, here, one organization that is called the FCE. Usually FCE means we call it as a faculty a consultant enterprise, and they are also very much interested in order to help the people to proceed further. They wanted to support the people. Like that, they have got faculty career enhancement organizations are there in abroad, faculty career enhancement colleges. Their main intention is to enhance the career opportunities, and therefore they are also having some kind of collaborations with other organizations. They have created certain special grants, and FCE colleges supported the research projects of partners who work at different FCE colleges but share common scholarly interest. Like one university may be having the other branches also. Therefore, collaborations can be there among the faculty members of the different branches of the institutions coming under the main branch. Reed College funded semester-long leaves for its faculty members to collaborate with colleagues in research. Therefore, many times I have come across, I was also the additional director in charge of research programs. Many faculty members say, sir, number one, first of all, our head of the institution, the principal, they say, primary work is to teach here, then your research. If you go for research, our work will suffer. That's why many principals may not encourage their staff members to go for research. They think that faculty, less number of faculties, may be practical difficulties. We can't mistake what they are saying. But at the same time, I request and appeal to the professors and senior principals by allowing him that research makes his teaching much more effective. Therefore, that's why I said research and teaching will go together. A person based upon the research background can make his teaching more effective. Therefore, why can't we understand that and allow him to take up the research? UGC is insisting. Lot of grants, ICSSR, they are also encouraging the people to do. In India, we are very proud that a lot of facilities are available both from the state as well as from the central government, especially to have research collaborations. The research scholars can go to a place like Hyderabad. I have come across one center. There they have got facilities for the research scholars to stay there. Nominal amount they take. They have got some kind of dormitory accommodation. A small canteen is attached. Therefore, research scholars can be given some 15 days leave. They can go, they can stay there, do the library work, collect all the information pertaining to chapter 2 or chapter 1, and they can come back. Therefore, collaboration can also be in this particular direction. Leave sanctioning that they are mentioned, semester-long leave. Out of 4 semesters, if a person from your college or university, if he is doing research, possibility is there that you can ask him to teach for only 3 semesters. Last semester you can give a leave, not complete leave if possible, part-time leave you can give. I think there are many ways. But once when you allow him to do the PhD, quality work also will be there. He will remember you. He comes back to you, put the condition if you want, make him to serve better, because the college has helped him to grow professionally. In turn, we expect the person also to contribute professionally to the college, professionally to the university. This type of support for cross-institutional collaboration is especially beneficial for a faculty who may be the only person at that institution who is specialized. Therefore, I think a lot of things are there. Another area is about research student assistants. Here, in some of these FCE college practice, they have got FCE funds permitted professors to have advanced students to assist with the research. Therefore, you can take some research assistants elsewhere. You call them. You can give them some kind of stipend or some kind of money. Ask them to teach your students with the practical aspects in the laboratory. You can invite people. I think there are many universities I have come across wherein they used to invite the professors from abroad, providing the flight charges to them, providing free accommodation and food to them, thereby asking them to teach, if possible with little more honorarium for the professors for having spent 10 days or 15 days. Series of lectures can be given. You can have such collaborations with that. A field and interest-based conference workshops, for that we can finance. Without finance, if we encourage, faculty may not come forward. Provide him. We have allocated, let us say, 1 lakh for conducting research. Interest may be there on the part of the faculty to come forward, collaborations. Or there are organizations, they say, we will give you, like NAC gives for conducting the awareness orientation program for institutions which are interested in conducting this program. NAC also gives financial assistance to them. In the same way, people also can have collaborations, and money is not a problem. Where there is a will, there is a way, we say. Then support for intellectual community. There are many intellectual people in the community. You can have some kind of collaborations. You can just mention that we are interested to collaborate with the intellectual people who are there in the community. They can come, they can serve, they can come out with so many things. Then similarly, you can have for the leadership development programs. You can send your staff members for the train your faculty members regarding the leadership quality. I think a lot of such opportunities are there. One has to make use of it. Now, why collaboration is key to the future of higher education? Now, to come to the practical situation, why are we talking collaborations? No matter the size or health of a higher learning institution, certain strategies can make collaborations partnership work more effectively. According to analysis, some 800 institutions face critical strategic challenges because of their inefficiencies of their small size. Therefore, size is small, income is less. They are not able to run the college, run the universities. Whereas in other countries, here in India, there are universities which have got more than 10,000, 12,000, 14,000 students. But I have come across abroad with 3,000 students, they used to call it as a university. 4,000 students, they can call themselves as university people. Because they have got fund, they are able to run. But sometimes we are not able to. Therefore, there is a need to have collaborations. The second era from 1991 to 2010 saw technology transformation in teaching and learning. Therefore, technologically, we wanted to orient our faculty members, students, but we are not having the facilities. Therefore, we wanted to equip ourselves and then do it. Higher education is now firmly situated in a third era, which is marked by diminished state and federal spending, lagging personal incomes of colleges going, females, and increased accountability around outcomes, particularly the view that the role of colleges to prepare graduates for a job. Therefore, other skills they are not able to provide. They concentrate mainly on teaching, learning, that's all, but not on the research. They give a lot of other reasons that they do not have facilities. Therefore, MOU will help. Similarly, here also another important point that I am just highlighting. Depending upon these collaborations, many developmental kind of activities can be taken up. Partnerships can also be worked out, and it will help. Now, friends, I think these are some of the areas in which you can have collaborations now. In few cases, they say this period offers tremendous opportunities for universities to partner and merge with institutions that would be sometimes like sick colleges, sick universities. I think who will take care of? There are few colleges which have been closed because of various reasons. Is it not possible to adopt such sick colleges and then come out with that based upon some partnership? I think a lot of facilities are available. Collaboration in this new era involves colleges and universities coming together as seemingly one institution to change their future decision. Even universities can adopt few colleges. They can give some kind of special financial assistance. They can provide special human support. I think many universities can do. If an university has got some 500 colleges, 400 colleges, some of them in the rural side, they are not able to develop. University should come forward. Can make a special provision to uplift the standard of such rural colleges. I think there is a need to do that. Similarly, I have given some statistical information why collaborations in terms of statistics I have given. Across higher education, revenue is squeezed while costs are rising. No tuition revenue is lagging the inflation rate at 55% of public universities and 40% of private universities, according to the some kind of investor service. The fundamental problem is that there are too many institutions chasing too few students. In a locality, students are few in number, but many colleges are there, many universities are there, but the students who are there living in the community or in what you call that catch-up area, they are less in number. Therefore, there are many issues. I think you can also have a glance about that. The biggest decline in enrollment has been among the small colleges, those with fewer than 1,000 students, which account for some 40% of degree granting institutions in the United States, since 210, their enrollment has fallen by more than 5%. I think world scenario is also there. In some institutions, the student strength is falling down. And how to retain the students in the organization, I think our collaborations and MOU can be some kind of eye opener, and that they can do it. Enrollment is down 3%. Now everywhere we are also saying we have to increase our enrollment. Another 10 years, we have to cross more than 50%, 55%. Our expectations are increasing day by day. On one hand, we wanted to increase, but how do we increase? Same college, same faculty members, same facilities, students are fed up. They may not be able to continue there. I think therefore there are some of the aspects that I have given. Because of paucity of time, probably I may not go very much in detail about these aspects. Similarly, about 2 out of 10 colleges are running annual budget deficits. Some of them are, I think the same point I've said now, some of them are not able to cater. Why new blocks are not coming? Sir, no money. Why facilities are not increased? No money. I think therefore how? I think there are different strategies one has to adopt in order to get the revenue for the college, revenue for the institutions. Collaborations may work in that direction. Tuition dollars may make 50%, 6% of the revenue. Revenue pie at private, not for profit colleges, which can, I think in both the sides we can argue. There are colleges which have got surplus amount. Their financial stability is so good. But on the other hand, there are few colleges, because of various reasons, they are not able to have a very good stability in their financial position. I think somewhere we have to keep this particular point, how best it is possible in order to enhance that. Now, friends, lastly, after having discussed about that, the last one I would like to touch upon is upon student support and progression. What is that? In our next criteria, this is one of the important criteria. A lot of weightage has been given to this student support and progression criteria, and I'm going to discuss. And I also refer to some metrics which highlights upon these aspects. The student progression is a process which ensures all students are passing required units to progress through a graduation. So about 2 years or 3 years or 4 years it will come. Now in India we have got only 3 years degree. In future we are planning to have 4 years, like that of the practice that is going on in the United States and other places. At the end of each semester, student grades are reviewed to determine whether progress in your students is satisfactory. Progression identifies poor academic performance while also providing an opportunity for increased support, advice, and to address performance. Therefore, 3 years, some or other, it pauses. But what about the progress of the students? What extra efforts have been put forward by the institutions in order to increase the student progression? The facility of student support services comprising personal and financial counseling, careers guidance, and support for students is a familiar part of the support available to students in all higher education institutions. Therefore, we can counsel them, we can give guidance to them, we can give financial support to them, so that no student after entering into the college should become a dropout. But even now we have come across situations where many dropouts are there because of various reasons. The growing multiplicity of students entering HIs has resulted in supplementary support being made available to sustain academic and personal development of the students, including learning skills to support academic writing skills, subject-specific support to address gaps in subject-based knowledge. I think very important. Most of you are very familiar compared to this. Many students do not have soft skills. Writing skills are not there. Spoken communicative English is not there. Then in some subjects they lack certain basic essential terms, terminology, theories and knowledge. Basically they do not have. Therefore, how do you expect the students to progress or advance without giving any kind of support to them? Mechanical way of going to the class, keeping the timetable and teaching may not help. The highlights of this criterion are the efforts of an institution to provide necessary assistance to students to enable them to acquire meaningful experience. Therefore, this the criteria insists that every student should be empowered and equipped properly. For that, the institution is responsible. Assistance to students to enable them to acquire meaningful experience of learning at the campus and to facilitate their holistic development and progression. Very, very important. It is a binding on the part of every one of us. Producing 100% is not important, but developing capacities, abilities, skills, and proper attitude among students is our concern. It also looks into student performance and the alumni profiles and the progression of students to higher education and gainful employment. That's why the focus of Criterion 5 is captured in the following key indicators. Look here, these are the 4 key indicators. This is the 5th criteria, as I mentioned. Under the 5th criteria, we have got the 4 indicators. One is called the student support, student progression, student participation and activities, and lastly, alumni engagement. These 4 are equally important. In the student support, facilitating mechanism like guidance cell, placement cell, grievance redressal cell, and welfare measures are very, very important. Therefore, usually we ask the higher education institution, do you have a guidance cell? Do you have a placement cell? Do you have a grievance redressal cell? Because all these things make students to become more comfortable, makes them to have confidence in continuing their education, because their backgrounds are different. Especially for university students are coming from different background, different educational background, different religious and language background. Some hurdles are there. Therefore, as a faculty members, we have to remove those hurdles. That's why we need to establish all these things. Specially designed inputs are provided to the needy students. Do you have a bridge course like? Do you have a remedial classes for them in order to equip them to learn whatever the basic thing that they have missed, they can learn. Provision is made for bridge and value added courses in relevant areas. You can think of value added courses, we say, that enriches the student's knowledge. Then institution has a well structured, organized guidance and counseling unit. Therefore, these are some of the aspects we will check when the peer team members visit the institution. They ask you under criteria about the facilities, what you provide for the student support. Under student progression, the institution's concern for student progression is to higher studies or to employment is a pertinent issue. Identify the reasons for poor attainment and plan, and I think this is also very equally important. Sustainable good practices which effectively support the students facilitate optimal progression. Institutional provisions facilitate vertical movement of students from one level to other. Now here we ask the questions like, do you encourage your students to go for higher education? How do you support? How do you motivate? How do you give information about higher education? Similarly, if they want to move from UG course to PG course to MPhil course, MPhil to PhD, then the job-related skills are you developing among these people? How to face an interview? How to attend a written examination, which is meant for securing a particular job? Very important. Then similarly, you can also have some healthy practices by means of which the students feel very happy and comfortable to continue. Then student participation and activity is equally important. Those days have gone. When we were very, very small, out of some 40 or 50 students, only students who were there in the front row, they were attracted by the faculty members when they were teaching. They were given prominence, but the students in the 4th, 5th and the last benches were neglected like anything. Now, according to me, every student should be given an opportunity to participate in one activity or the other. Every student should be empowered, irrespective of caste, creed, color, religion, and gender. We have to equip. This is very, very important. That's why the experts will ask you, the institution promotes inclusive practices for social justice. Some students are physically challenged, the Divyangan students. Do you admit them? What facilities do you provide for them? The institution promotes value-based education for inculcating social responsibility and good citizen. The students, we are making some of the students to become learning machines. No, they are all good human beings. They are having giftedness. Every individual is potentially divine. Therefore, we have to train every individual along with our curricular subjects about values. We have to teach them, inculcate them to get the values, make them to be good citizens. The institution has the required infrastructure and promotes active participation of the students in social, cultural, and other activities. Very, very important. How many students will participate? I think this is an important area. Dear friends and dear viewers, you are all watching. I came from a rural side. I have equipped myself. I have struggled to come up to a particular level like this. There are many students like me around you. Therefore, you have to take interest of those things because they are going to become our would-be citizens and they are going to become the partners for our knowledge economy. Therefore, unless you provide opportunities for them to participate, so either social activities, cultural activities, sports activities, various kinds of activities. That's why we say individual differences exist. Every individual has got one type of potential or the other. God has created each individual with some ability or skill, and it is for us to identify. Very, very, very important. That's why this is a beautiful point. I personally liked it very much. Then alumni engagement. I have come across, there are higher education institutions, they had alumni long back and gap was there. The moment when they say they wanted to go for the second cycle, they started contacting all old students, asking them to come for the 1 day meeting, the peer team members will be having with them at that time. No. My sincere request, do not satisfy the peer team members because urgently you are going to do something, some kind of magical arrangements you are doing. Not all, but 5% or 10%. Please do not do. Alumni can do wonderful support to your organization. Your own students, they have gone elsewhere, occupied different positions, economically doing well, and they have already manifested their own abilities and skills to a greater extent. Invite them, call them, pull them, motivate them. They can contribute great. Therefore, we'll be asking some questions regarding how many alumni, what are their contributions, how are they going to support you, financially are they supporting you or not. Various kinds of ways that you can get the help from the alumni. That will be our strong support. Bill Gates was invited after 30 years because he was not a successful person in getting a higher graduation. He could not able to complete. But with all these things, he is a gifted man, lot of abilities. Thousands of people have been given job. He gives a beautiful message in the when he was invited as an alumni to the college. They will kindly see that your own students have occupied. Give them regards, show them regards, affection. They come with lot of affection. Some of them are ready to help. Now we ask the questions regarding that. Now I think you can also go through our manual. You will get an idea. Under the research, innovations and extension, we have got one key indicator 3.7 and it is called collaboration, and we have got some 20 weightage is there, 20 much weightage is there here, collaborations now. I think you can refer. Similarly, more or less it is same. Then the next one, student support and progression. We have got 100 marks weightage, and under the 4 different headings which I have mentioned, student support, student progression, student participation and activities, and lastly alumni engagement. Beautiful. All these areas are wonderfully structured well. And in collaborations, we ask the questions like number of collaborative activities with other institutions, how many you are having? Do you have collaborations? Direct question is there under that now. You can refer. Number of functional MOUs you are having. As I mentioned, functional means right now you are working. The expiry date is not yet over. That's called functional. And you have been organizing some kind of programs. Therefore, two metrics under that category. Apart from that, under the student support and progression, we have got almost 12 metrics we are having. Like we have got 5.1.1. Average percent of students benefited by scholarships, like one matrix is there. Average percent of students benefited by career counseling. A direct question. Why can't you start a counseling center, guidance and counseling center? You can start. Do we have a competitive examination cell where you can train your students to appear for competitive examinations like KAS, IAS examinations? You can train them. They feel very happy. In addition to their usual way of getting the knowledge, let them get the specialized knowledge here to pass the examination. We ask some questions. following capacity building programs like do you have soft skills programs, language and communication skills related programs, life skills programs, awareness program regarding technology. I think many interesting that they'll be asking. Percentage of recently graduated students who have progressed to higher education. How many of them have got, out of 100 students, you have to give a statistics about how many of them have gone to teaching, how many of them have gone to research, how many of them have gone to the business. All the details I think we ask you. And the student progression, participation and activities, number of awards, medals won by your students by outstanding performance in sports, cultural activities. How many of your students have been recognized? According to me, you are either the parents should identify the talents of the students, or as an higher education institution, you should identify the talents and you have to nurture. That's why this question is there. Then presence of student council and activities for institutional development and the student welfare activities. What are the welfare activities that you are having? Support from the student council, support from the alumni, you can. Average number of sports and cultural activities you have organized, we ask question. Then the alumni association, the chapters contributed significantly to the development of the institution through financial. How do you get benefit from your organization? A simple question we asked like alumni contribution during the last 5 years. We ask a question like this, and we ask you to give how much money you have collected last 5 years financial support from your students. In that way, I think, in my opinion, all the 7 criteria are very good. 5th criteria is extremely good. And our today's topic is focusing upon criteria 3 and criteria 5 exclusively. And most of you are very familiar, those who are watching. And kindly read this manual once again to have a better understanding. And friends, this is what I wanted to just share today. Therefore, thank you very much. And we wait for questions so that I think we can answer your questions. Thank you very much for viewing. Thank you. Habib?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Habib? Yeah. I think you can just
Yeah,
invite some questions. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, you can just. I think any question pertaining to any one of these areas. Is the sound is okay? No.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. You can start. I think you can ask them to start from the end, or you can just. The questions are not there today?
No, sir. Searching, sir.
Huh? Searching. Yeah. You
Yes,
can. Yeah. Or some clarity or some remarks in case that they have given also fine. Otherwise.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Habib, you can read.
Yes, sir. I am reading, sir.
Kindly read loudly.
From Vijay Vallabh.
Yeah. Kindly
It is very difficult for government colleges to sign a MOU and collaborations. May you guide how these institutions can sign
Okay,
MOU
thank you.
and collaborations?
Okay, thank you. It is a good question. There are government institutions already have undergone for MOU. Therefore, I request you to find out the government organizations which have undergone for the MOU, and what is the procedure. You will get an idea, number 1. And number 2, you can have some of the MOUs by taking the permission from your nearest higher authority. You write to him and request him that you wanted to go for this MOU, and it is very much necessary as per the requirements of the accrediting agencies. If you write to them, nobody will say no, but you have to tell them where you wanted to have an MOU. Very important. Would like to go MOU with Sports Authority of India. Where exactly? Therefore, my suggestion is you kindly prepare some areas in which you wanted to go for MOU. Then identify the number of organizations or name of the organization with which you wanted to go. Second one. Then keep a small letter drafted to your higher authority. Definitely they are not going to say no. Only if there is a financial constraint from your part that they may say. Otherwise, I think most of the AS officers we have come across, they have encouraged their concerned officers who is in charge. Therefore, kindly contact those who have undergone MOU, number one. Number two, I said, you prepare, you may make a note and prepare a letter to your higher authority stating that you wanted to. Take the permission, that's all. Once when you get the permission, move with the organizations, have an agreement and proceed with the activities. Therefore, I think it is not a big thing. Only if the finance is involved, probably they may object. Otherwise, I think we are all open. Nobody will prevent. Rather, they are going to appreciate this MOU. In my opinion, government institutions should come forward to have at least some 3 to 4 MOUs pertaining to your requirements. Thank you. It's a good question. I liked it. I hope Mr. Vallabh will take it further to proceed and come out with some action. Thank you. Habib, next question.
Yes, sir. One more question is there, Dr.
Yeah,
Mahadev.
okay.
If the college signed MOU within the same locality, will it be considered in the assessment?
No, you see, locality is secondary for us. In my opinion, to the best of my opinion, locality is secondary, number one. Number two, what is the organization with whom you are going for that MOU? For example, I am staying in Malleshwaram. I am running a college. Indian Institute of Science is close to me. It is in my locality only. Therefore, locality will not matter. I am going to have an MOU with Indian Institute of Science means keeping my purpose, keeping the purpose with whom you are going to have a MOU is very important compared to this idea. Whether is it in the same locality or not, that is secondary. It will not affect much, in my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah. Sir, Mr. Abhijit Mane is there.
Okay.
He raised the hand, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Tell me.
Yeah. So one small basic question I'm supposed to ask, whether the MOU which is to be signed, is it to be signed on some official papers like bond papers or any official letterheads will also work also?
Yeah, that's a good question. I agree. But I think bond paper is not necessary unless you go with an organization which is going to insist upon. Yeah. Otherwise you can prepare in the executive bond paper only. There is a procedure, there is a template is there. You can look into any general template and you can proceed. That bond paper, I think it is not necessary unless the other organization insist upon that. Otherwise, it is fine. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Anything you want to add? Okay. Okay. Then any other question? Mr. Panmudi Raj is also there. Advisor who has got very widely traveled and very nice experience, and he also will join to answer your questions.
One question is there, sir.
Yes, yeah.
Dr. Mahinder Kaur.
Yeah.
How do we compare and contract MOU and collaborations?
Compare and contrast. Anything you want to say?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's why I said the MOU. MOU is little more formal. Number one, MOU is little more formal. You are going to have this MOU based upon your purpose and objectives of running your institution. You have to keep that in mind, and further you have to keep the objectives and purpose of the other organization, and therefore it is very formal, keeping and observing the matching of this. You are going to have an MOU. For the MOU, the duration is there of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Collaboration is a little more flexible. Therefore, you can have collaborations with the national organization or international organization. That need not be so much rigid with the term like 2 years or 3 years. It is not. But still, if you wanted to have a time consent, you can have it. Otherwise, some correlation is there between these two. But when it comes to the rigidity aspect, MOU is little more structured, more functional, based upon matching of the objectives with which both the parties or organizations are going to get the benefit. Thank you.
Good, sir. That was very good, like what Professor Srikanta Swamy was talking about. With the same levels, everybody understands this people, and we have given in the glossary, in the manual, if you go through the guidelines also,
Exactly.
we differentiate technically linkages, collaborations, and MOUs. MOUs or MOUs or Memorandum of Understanding, Memorandum of Agreements. There's a formal, MOUs is mostly formal. It is not, Dr. Manohar Patil was asking about is MOUs for individual faculty, for the whole department, it is called as linkages or collaboration, not necessary. So collaborations or linkages can be one-to-one or with the institution. Linkages are normally, I have a project, international project, I go to Brussels and come back, and there is, that professor comes and we have a joint publication, joint collaborations, but any, with the informal level. Collaborations is the higher order of linkage. Collaborations can also be MOAs and MOUs, but it is a very, very formal way of putting it, whether 3 years, 1 year, 5 years, depending on the period. When you go for the, disagreement, or when you break the MOU, or you continue the MOU for another 5 years, it's all, that is, we differentiate in that. For as far as NAAC process of assessment accreditation, for third criteria, for second criteria, teaching, learning, research, innovations, extension, as well as for governance, leadership, and management for training purposes. And regarding Dr. Professor Nitin Mawale, I'll just take up this question for off-campus placement after graduation of student. So the duration, normally placement, you go through the standard operating procedures of the 5th criteria. Please keep updated our new SOPs, which is quite often updated in the website of NAAC, the standard operating procedures. It categorically talks about the SOPs, about the placement record, entrepreneurship. We talk about the placement. We talk about the placement either through the management or the person who has got it. We ask about offer letters, very clear about the offer letters. Then we talk about appointment orders. We talk about joining reports. Sometimes people, even for a teacher, when we ask about relieving order and joining, because of the 2nd criteria, we ask how many years the teacher, the assistant professor, associate professor, or a faculty is in that particular college or a university. Similarly, for placements, we need the person who has joined up. The SOP talks about offer letters and appointment orders and joining reports. Just go through the SOPs then and there. The updated SOPs is categorically talked about. Thank you, Professor Nitin Mawale. That is a good question. Manohar Patil Saab, that was also a good one.
Yeah. Habib, any other question?
No, sir.
No?
No.
Yeah. I think no question? Yeah.
Yes, sir. No questions are there.
Oh, yeah. Friends, I think we appreciate your questions. And as Dr. Ponmudi Raj has mentioned, there are 2 aspects that you have to keep in mind to have a better clarity. One aspect with whatever we have discussed plus the information available. The second aspect, you refer to the standard operating procedure, that is SOP, which has given guidelines, because that SOP is used both by the institution as well as by our ICT unit. Then the glossary, whatever we have given, by understanding the glossary, and also third one, you can refer to the data template in some of the places we have provided, because the evidences are equally important. As Dr. Ponmudi Raj has mentioned, your evidences are supportive of whatever the answer you have given. Automatically, it makes you to get more marks. For that, you refer to the data template pertaining to that metrics, so that it will give you an idea how exactly you have to proceed with it. I think this is what we wanted to just share. I thank Professor Ponmudi Raj from my side for having joined and cooperated so well in making this today's program well. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Good evening, one and all. Respected Director Sir, today's speaker, participants, advisors, and my colleagues. On this occasion, it gives me immense pleasure to propose vote of thanks of today's Upanyas Malika series on MOUs, collaboration, and student progression and quality indicators in higher education. First of all, I am very much thankful to our Honorable Director, Professor S.C. Sharma ji sir, for his valuable support, encouragement, motivation to conduct this program. On behalf of NAC family, it is my great pleasure to convey my heartfelt thanks to all the participants who attended this program from various parts of the country. I am very much thankful to Professor Srikanta Swami, Academic Consultant, Research Wing, NAC, his excellent presentation on MOUs, collaboration and student progression, a quality indicator in higher education. I am very much thankful to Dr. Amya Kumar sir, advisor, Dr. Palmudira sir, advisor, and Mr. Samuel, system analyst, for host this webinar successfully. My sincere thanks goes to all the advisors, official staff, ICT team of NAC, their motivation and support to make this program grand success. So once again, I thank you one and all. Namaskar.
Thank you, Kamleji. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Namaskar.